Muy buenos días, muy buenas tardes, muy buenas noches a todos. Bienvenidos a nuestro programa Mayor Linguas. El día de hoy tenemos a un invitado muy especial. Estaremos hablando de diferentes aspectos acerca de la cultura, así que le doy la bienvenida a Stuart, a Smith. Recuerden chicos que nosotros tenemos un correo en el que ustedes pueden mandar sus preguntas, sugerencias y demás para que así podamos entre todos enriquecer este programa. El correo es majorlinguasrp@gmail.com. Recuerden que esta es la única información que será dada en español. A partir de ahora llevaremos a cabo el resto del programa en inglés. So let's start. Hi Smith, how's it going?
Hey, it's a pleasure to meet you, Rowan. I'm so excited, to be part of this radio program. I've heard a bunch of interesting things about you guys, about this process. This is actually a really good chance to not only discuss, but also, I would say, more importantly, to try to clarify aspects, some topics about language, which is a really wide topic. There is actually too much to talk about, so we try to narrow it and like different discussions. So thank you so much for the invitation. Well, I mean, let's see, let's have fun and try to do our best today here.
Okay, thank you so much, Smith, for your words, for everything. So now let's go with some questions about you before going deeper
Hey,
in our
sure.
topic.
Why not? Yeah, that'd be great.
So, Smith, how long had you been teaching English?
Oh, that's a good question. Because lately I've been doing a different thing than just teaching English, but to be precise, I would say more than 4 years now teaching English. Yeah. As a, of course, second language. Yeah, for sure. More than.
Okay, okay, so Smith, can you tell me what has been the most challenging thing for you about teaching languages?
With no doubts at all, I would say that it's really hard to, let's say, well, to teach certain group of population. I would start by going with the population because, of course, as a teachers, we need to go with, have some classes with children, teenage, with teens, at the same time with, I would say, adult people, more than maybe 18 years old, I could say, more than 25. So in that aspect of teaching, definitely it could be challenging for me, to teach children because I'm the type of teacher who loves to really express yourself. So with a child, with a child with children, of course you need to do some activities, because they are really, I would say, eclectic. So they love to move, just to have really good like playing games. So it's good, of course, to go with that, but that's not my stuff. So that's why I face it or I find it pretty challenging, which is children. But apart from that, when I have the chance which is to teach my, let's say, population, of course I have the chance just to express myself, just to go with interesting topics because I love to promote the critical thinking. So that's the idea that by having those classes, it's really important for me to have discussion because I love that's for me talking about the English skills speaking, it's one of the maybe I would say the best one apart from listening because when we are born, we start with listening. We just listen to our parents, but later on the babies start to say dad, mom, daddy. So that's why speaking is a really good way to profit and of course to boost the English skills. So that's what by having those classes with students age 20 and above, it's really useful. It's really, I find it really uplifting for me just to have those sessions, those classes. Yeah. So that's the challenge.
Ah,
I find it.
okay, I get you. So in your case, you enjoyed like developing discussion into classes. So for that reason, you rather teach
You got it. There
adults.
you go. That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, so uh, I can find that you are really excited about teaching languages. So that makes me ask you, why did you decide to study English?
English in particular. Well, English because I would say that I'm a millennial guy. I was born back in the 90s. I'm not gonna say the specific year. I was born back in the 90s. I leave it to you guys just to think in which year I was born. But based on that, back then English was, I would say, maybe the most, just to avoid saying that the unique, the only one, the only language known all across the globe. So when I started, when I was immersed in school, high school at the same time, English was the way to make not only profit, but English was the way to know the world. So I knew, with that idea of I need to learn English just to not to be someone because that is just a different discussion, but just to have the option to travel, the option to know the world. Which unfortunately, well, down the road you realize that even with your own native language, Spanish, you can also know the world. But the thing is that that is something that is bound to capitalism. That English just gives you the chance to just to make a really good profit because we're talking about America or the United States of America. So that's why let's say that yeah, that seed was born when I was a kid, when I was a child, and also trying to check some movies, the Hollywood movies. I said, wow, damn, that would be amazing. That would be great to speak the language. They're talking that. It's of course English. That's another aspect of why I love, why I'm immersed in this English aspect of language.
Okay, Smith. Well, uh, now that you were mentioning about globe, everything about around the world, having in mind that English is like the international language, uh, what was like the most, how to say that is how was like the most um, inspiring or the most resourceful way in which you found to learn speaking? Because well, probably we are in agreement that one of the most difficult skills for a non-native speaker to acquire is speaking. So
Definitely.
how
Yeah.
did you do that?
All right. So I would say that the way, well, maybe that upbringing, at the same time, how your parents, rise you up, plays an important role. So I had the chance to, well, I still have such a lovely parents. I love them. Shout out to my parents. I hope you guys, check this video out. You should. So they, to some extent, yeah, they encouraged me to start working from a really early age. Despite the fact that, let's say that we're just, yeah, I would say that we're just a middle class family. They got back then a really good income. So despite the fact that they did have the chance to pay university, my my father was like, it's better for you to start working, just for you to understand how the world works. So I said, all right, that's good, that's great. And back then, I got the chance. He paid me. Actually, it was a full year of English studies. So that's actually how this English journey began. I was back in oof, 2013, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So back then, he said, yeah, you gotta start working. You're 18, 19 years old, so do it. That's the way in which you're gonna grow as a man. So finding a job, I came across with bumped into, I would say, the call center life. Here in Colombia, for those that are here in Colombia, you know that nowadays is a really common job for the youth. The young people is really common here. It's really well paid when you know a different language. Foreign language is really well paid. So that's the reason why I found the job. Of course, I started with a semi-bilingual campaign. What do I mean by that? That the system, the tools that you're provided with are pretty much in English. So you need to know, let's say, the name of when you go to these, when you browse through a particular tool, when you're navigating, you need to try to, of course, understand what you're reading because that's information that you're going to convey, that you're going to pretty much say to the customer. And then in the customer, you're gonna speak with the customer to interact with them in Spanish. That was my first interaction. But then it took me like 6 months to say like, well, because back then I knew some friends that they were working in a bilingual campaign, and of course, back then I already started 1 year in English, so I said like, well, I do know English, but is it because I'm not feeling that comfortable to speak that I don't dare to, to say like, should I take the risk, to transfer to switch over to an English campaign? So it took me, as I mentioned before, 6 months, and then I said like, you know what, no pain, no gain. Let me just put hands on work and let me just do it. And it was really hard. It was a really lovely journey because even though I was in an institute learning English, I learned the most by doing it myself. Because maybe I was conscious, what I was doing. I knew how, I mean, pretty much I discovered that I'm a self guy. I mean, if I do it like a self study, I would do it better than just doing it in a class. So that's why I started to watch some movies, and that was really good. I mean, that was a really nice experience, and that was really useful because it was due to that I got the chance to be transferred to an English campaign, and that's where the I would say I'm gonna use the same word, the journey, in this call center industry began a couple of years ago, and wow, man, I would say that is such an incredible experience. The first call, just the chance to speak with a native English speaker is such an amazing experience. It's incredible, actually. I have no words apart from that you're a bit nervous, like you barely, because back then you didn't have the same skills. I didn't have the same skills I do right now, so it was challenging for me. They couldn't even get, of course, they couldn't even understand what I was trying to express. And of course, well, we have different cultural aspects, but it was really, really hard for me to express. But that's the reason why nowadays I'm good. I'm good in speaking. So that's why I said, like, you know what? By speaking, you have the chance to do it with a native. Because if you don't know how to speak, come on, you're never gonna have the chance to speak with a native English speaker. So, yeah.
Okay, okay, thank you so much, Smith. Well, actually, in the meantime that you were speaking, I like was thinking about is it call center or culture center because you had the opportunity
Oh, that's good. That's a
you
great.
you had you had the opportunity to know people from other countries and talk to them,
That's
identify their
lovely.
accents, the
I've
pronunciation
never,
they have.
never had that. I'm sorry for cutting you off, but you're definitely right. No one has said it before, but it's actually culture center. That's good.
Yes,
I mean,
because
you're right.
you
I'm
are
agree.
interacting with different people in
Oh,
the globe.
good. That's good. It should be called cultural center. That's great.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna make it a call center company, and that's the name I'm gonna just name it. Cultural center.
Yeah,
That's
that
good.
would be a great idea. Yeah. So, well, having in mind that you had the opportunity to get involved into culture, so probably you had many different experiences or something like that. But before going deeper on that, Smith, I would like to know if did you learn any other language apart from English?
Yes. Before English, was it? No, actually, after English, I had the chance to start learning Hebrew. That was another language. Hebrew. I had a native. He was born in Israel, but when he was really, I mean, let's say, a young kid, he was moved to Russia. So, Czechoslovakia, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, I did have the chance to learn Hebrew, and then later on, because of the university studies, I found interesting to go with Portuguese. So I know a bit. I would say like I'm kind of a beginner in Portuguese, but yeah, I know also know Portuguese. Yeah, I love it as well. And that's
Okay,
it.
perfect. Perfect. Yes. Well, actually, uh, so am I. I am a beginner. I consider myself a beginner in Portuguese because
I speak
sometimes I'm
Portuguese.
speaking.
Oh,
Yes,
cool.
sometimes I'm
You're fast. Yeah.
speaking Portuñol. So it's like
But
I'm thinking in Spanish and I'm like giving the
Spanish, right?
idea.
Like Spanish,
Yes,
you know, you say here.
something like
Cool.
that. Yeah, but
Okay.
I have given the try for some time, but well, actually, I think I need to improve on. But yes, it's like a matter of practice. You said that you started learning English since 2014. So
14, yeah.
basically, you had been performing this ability since
But you
then,
know,
right?
you
So
know that
you,
that's the thing because for those who are, you know, watching this video, this program, it's 2024. Check this out. It's 10 years, you know. Now that I read 10 years and I still learn. I mean, I still need to learn and I'm still learning a bunch of things. So that's why when some of the student asks us, you know, as a teachers, teacher, how long is it gonna take for me to learn to acquire, you know? Because of course one thing is learn a language and another one is totally different, is acquire language, you know. How long is it gonna take for me to acquire, to learn a language? So you see, 10 years and I'm still learning, so it's not that it's gonna take that long, you know. It's just actually because I really want to not to become native. That is, I mean, impossible. Of course, there is no way to forget. Yeah, I don't want to forget my Colombian roots. I'm Latino, you know, and I will be forever. But of course, but when it comes to language, it's really good to acquire. You know, let's say one of the top, the highest. So that's why it takes time. You know, it takes time to really learn English. So of course, with some month, you can, let's say, try to get yourself around. You know, maybe you're traveling with a few months that you're taking in an institute is good. If you want to travel, you know, but really want to, let's say, stay there, well, it takes time. It's up to you. It's up to the student. Yeah, sure.
okay, so do you think those 10 years were really important in your performance by nowadays?
Definitely. I mean, undoubtedly, that's a fact. That's a fact. Yeah, there is no way that I say no, no, no. Of course, because on a daily basis, wow. Now that I remember, on a daily basis, that's the thing. Actually, it became a habit when I started like the self study. You know, just to do it by myself. And there is like a common, let's say, like rule of thumb, that when you do something for 21 days, it becomes a habit. You know, it's part of your life. So now that I remember, yeah, I did it for more than 20 days, and now it's part of me. And on a daily basis, I need to learn at least one vocabulary, one simple word. So that's why a day represents like a new option. Of course, you know, beyond the opportunity to, you know, just to be alive. It's a good chance to keep working, and so that's why these 10 years. It's been a long journey. I can say that it's not that easy because, of course, I mean, sometimes instead of doing different things, and maybe instead of have like a maybe the chance to go, I don't know, to have chill. I'd rather, you know, stay at home, just gather some information. So it takes, I mean, work, you know, but once again, no pain, no gain. So that's why definitely it's worth it. It's worth it. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay, yes, well, Smith, thanks for like giving us clear that, well, many people, well, in universities, it's like there is like a sort of syndrome because people or some students like feel that they are falling behind because they are not like getting the rhythm in progress semester by semester. I mean, when people are in the university, they have the myth or the belief that you have to be C1 when you get out of the university, right? So thanks for like letting us know that, well, the most difficult strategy to develop or to work on is like the most fruitful at the moment of learning a language, and it's autonomous learning.
But let
But
me let me add
it's,
something there.
yep.
Now that you're bringing that up, and thank you. Actually, there's a really good topic here. But it's important, you know, to clarify some aspect because in university, in general, maybe here in Colombia, I'm not sure if in a different country, you know, it's gonna be the same rule. But in our country, it's a fact. Yes, it's a law. Per law, the students, you know, we need to acquire C1 in order to get the degree, you know. So, but the question is, that's the certificate. Does it really give us the? I mean, that we're C1, or it's just like some document paper? And at the same time, if we talk about the C1 itself, it's because I don't know. It's because I excel in speaking. It's because I rock in reading. It's because I don't know. I'm good. I'm like a top performer in writing. So it's really hard because when it comes to the that framework, that pretty much level of English, A1, 2, so on and so forth, just to say that a student, someone is C1 is really hard to tell. That's how, of course, that's something that it's measurable to some extent, but it's really hard because that person, the individual who say that I'm C1, for example, um, that individual may be C1, could be C1, and I would say speaking, but when it comes to writing, you put it in writing like I don't know, academic, writing like an essay, you realize that it's just B1. You see, so that's why it's really important to how we measure, the English skill. Is it being measured accurately or just in general, just to get the degree? So it's good, because for those who have got C1, as the common phrase says, if you don't use it, you lose it. So it's important just to keep working. Otherwise, eventually down the road, you're gonna lose the level that you said you have. So yeah.
Smith, would you say that learning a language is like going to the gym?
Whoa, whoa, whoa! That's a good one. That's interesting, but no one. I've never thought about it. But it's a fact. It's working out. Definitely. Not only English. Maybe any language that you like to acquire. To learn. Definitely, yes. Just working out. So if you need to work, there you go. For example, certain part of your muscle, the legs, perhaps your arms. You need to do a specific activity. It's the same. If you want to improve your speaking, well, go to a certain app, try to find like a native or maybe even your colleague. Your native friend, and speak. Otherwise, it's gonna be hard. Because it's not only just watching a video how you can, stretch yourself, or that's not gonna help at all. So you need to do it. So that's why
So,
it's important. Yeah, you get it. It's good. Yeah. Wow. So I
so
go to the
probably
gym every day.
Yeah, so probably we are like
Mhm.
intending to tell everyone that, for example, if they want to improve a specific skill, it's like we're talking about four skills, in some cases five, but also if we like try to be metaphoric here, we are talking about five muscles, right? You see, it's like you
There you go.
cannot exercise just one muscle. You have to be like you have to integrate everything if you want to improve in every skill. So yes, it's like the
That's true.
invitation that we can give to our listeners is that, well, in this program just they are just going to improve listening, right? But for example, if they want to improve speaking, writing, reading, they have to do some other activities that
Exactly.
are related to the that specific skill or that
Let's talk
specific
about this.
muscle.
If we talk about the sex appeal, for those who have, have played Grand Theft Auto sex appeal, do it. Work on your speaking. Because that's your cover. Your English cover. You're speaking. Oh, this guy loves. So that's your sex appeal. But of course, then let's say talking about, because when you go work out. When you go to the gym, it's not only going to the gym. Behind the curtain, you need to take care of your what you eat, your nutrition. So what kind of books, what kind of information did you get? That's another thing. So that's why it's not only going to the gym. If you don't work at home, that's the thing. It's not only going to the university. It's not only about going to the institute. To, well, I don't know. I'm not gonna promote any institute. I was about to say one, but I'd rather just stay quiet. Because this is like, I mean, they haven't paid us yet, so there is no way to have publicity here. For free. Like, come on. So it's not only going to that particular institute. It's just how or how much effort, how much time do you put into, into it at home. So you see, that's another aspect actually about going to the gym. That's good. That's great. Check your mic. Check your mic. Yeah.
Ah, yeah, thanks. So, yes, basically, yes, because sometimes it's like people want to improve, but they think, and it's all. I also think it's because of like a bad influence of social media, something like that. It's like get an English one in three
True.
months
True.
something like that. And I think it's a matter of practice. And sometimes, well, I think that there is a syndrome here in the bachelor's degree program, and it's that everyone
Which
is
one
com-
is
everyone is comparing themselves with everybody. So no, this guy is better than me at speaking, but well, what is that guy doing to be
yep,
like
yep, yep.
better in that area? So it's not a matter of like low esteem. It's a matter of be conscious about what are you doing to improve your English
That's
skills,
true. That's very
and
true. That's
that's
right.
that's it. So
But
okay,
check this. Not
Smith.
only that, actually. Sorry, let me just point something out here.
Yep,
In that example, in that, as you said before, what was the word you said? There is like it's not a sickness,
syndrome.
syndrome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually, maybe something psychology. Yeah, that we can just talk about psychology here, because what we see in the other person, let's say that what I don't like the other person, what I dislike from the other person is the thing that I need to work on. So you said it. So we can just think that, let's put it in this way: the universe, it's a mirror. It's a huge mirror. So what you see in the other that maybe you like or you don't like, or you see that maybe he does it because of his ego. Try to work on this. Try to work on that, and sooner or later you're gonna discover that you got it.
Yeah, I would like to make a point before going on is that habits are not the key because every person is different. So you have to find your formula here because everybody is different. Probably for Smith, it's quite easy or interesting or useful to listen to podcasts, but for other person would be better to watch movies with closed captions in English.
That's good.
I
You're right. You're right. You're right. That's good. That's good.
So yes, everyone has to find its own like habit and discipline to improve because it's not like a key, it's not like a formula. Everybody is different, so you have to have this in mind. So yes,
True.
that's it. So Smith, to continue, well, let's put on in this way. Basically, we were talking about many different things, but now it's important to be focused on culture.
Interesting.
And basically, what we are going to talk about culture, we are going to discuss many different things. So the first one that we are going to discuss here is: do you think culture affects intercultural interactions, having in mind your
Background. Yeah.
context, the
Background.
context
Okay.
in which, yes, your background. Do you think that culture affects intercultural interactions? Like, think about yourselves, the interactions you have had, and tell me what do you think?
I used to say, when some classes, the university, some sessions there, some lectures. That used to be a tough question, but I'm gonna use a different word than tough, because it's not far-fetched either. It's wide. That question is really wide, and well, just to narrate a little bit might be hard. That's the thing. But let's start off by trying to bring or clarify the thing about language and culture. But in this case, we have culture affects interaction. Yeah, intercultural interactions. Because when it comes to interactions, definitely we need to use language. Either if it is in social media, we're writing or typing, but it's language. Even if we use some images, pictures, that is a way to communicate. Through some pictures. But to some extent as well, at the same time, and for example, in work, we were just talking about is the same. We need to use language they speak, vocal or vocal cords. So interaction is your language, right? I mean, that's the first part, and then we have culture. So is it the same or is it totally different? Of course, language is immersed in culture because the language is just a part in which the culture itself is expressed out. You know, so that's why if we think about religion, for example, just to answer this question, we can talk about it. Religion, like let's say in Spanish, like Ave Maria, right? Oh, Ave Maria. When something happens, oh, Ave Maria. Or like when I don't like something, Ave Maria. But then we just get to United States. It's gonna be a bit hard to say Ave Maria. There will be like, what the fuck are you talking about? So that is something culture. In my own culture, I know that is. I know what do I mean by that. But of course, that it affects the way in which if I want to express, just to have an interaction with someone in a different culture. Even when, for example, if I go to a country where they don't even believe in a god, it would be even worse. So definitely our upbringing, our culture really actually defines that. That's the thing, because our culture gives us an identity. So that's why when I go to another identity, when different group of people, it's important to get to know them prior, just to, of course, avoid different things. And that's the reason why, at the same time, it shapes the way we think about the world, shapes the way in which we think about ourselves. So definitely, culture affects interactional culture aspects. Yeah, with when it comes to communication. So it's a fact. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so do you think that if we get involved in different cultures, that would uh, contribute to our mindset, the way in which we see life?
Oh, well. I mean, it's interesting because in each culture, of course, we can learn a bunch of things. And with that in mind, for example, if you are into religion, I would say so. If you believe in, well, in God, let's put it this way, or in the universe, if you go to India, because of their religion, or let's say they're into that stuff and they work a lot, they do a bunch of research, and you can find a bunch of monks, in India, for example, in China as well, in different like iconic, places. I would say we're from places we can also use the premises, like religious premises. So by visiting those places and by growing their culture, because it's not only speaking, we need to grow, we need to understand their culture itself. Um, Definitely we grow as a human being, and of course it will shape tremendous. It will have a tremendous impact in which how we're gonna start, let's say, perceiving or thinking about what the word really is. So some of you guys might have read books, maybe books for American writers. I have read books about Israelis. I mean, person from Israel guys. I also have read books from, if I'm not mistaken, the guy from Egypt. And of course, when we're into that, well, reading, literature, we get to know them. We get to know their culture. So that's why that's an example to say that definitely that will shift. I will say that will shift our mindset, how we perceive the world, and once again how we do know ourselves as well. Yeah. So it's a fact.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more because sometimes it's like we are like inside the box, and everything that we think we consider as like the final or the end, like the final word is in that way and that. And sometimes there are some things that are quite different. So that makes me think, Smith, if you have ever gotten involved in another culture speaking English.
culture speaking English, like that could be ambiguous. This question, it is ambiguous and involving a different culture speaking English. Like, can you please elaborate on the question?
Yeah, for example, having in mind, let's say that we both speak English, right?
Okay.
But we are from different countries. You are you are
Gotcha.
from Colombia, and you are, I don't know, you probably have had the opportunity to speak to a
Gotcha.
Chinese
Gotcha.
person, something
Okay, I
like that.
get. I hear you. I hear you now. I get your point. I know what you're coming from. Yes, well, in the culture center that you were talking about, I love it. Yeah, definitely want to say the word. Yeah, I've had the chance to speak with Indian people. I love Indian people. I gotta say, I have nothing to do with them, but it's pretty unique. It's a pretty interesting conversation when you speak with an Indian. And of course, the first thing, like the cover of the conversation, definitely it's actually their accent. So when we have that interaction, let's say that the accent plays an important role. Why? Because when we don't speak, when we don't have a good accent, or maybe when we're not clear about what we're trying to convey, we may end up talking, something way different. For example, well, this is an example. I'm trying to use a different one because that will be if we have some kids, watching our video. We're talking about teeth and the teeth, of a lady. So that's why we need to be careful. Hey, I love you, but that's just an example. So just the way in which we pronounce a word is plays an important role. Otherwise, we're ended up talking about something way different. So that's why it's really interesting to express with them because I don't know why, but to some extent, by far, by and large, by speaking with them, they swear that they are speaking English. They swear and they. I don't know, but I mean, a few of them they speak such a really good. I mean, they have such a really good English level, but the majority, it's really fun. I mean, it's funny. It's funny when you hear them speaking English. Yeah, so that's why. Apart from that, I mean, from Indian people, people from let's say Greek, from Greece. I would say from Greece. I mean, of course, their native language is Greek. People from Greece. At the same time, they sometimes struggle, speaking them. So that's another, let's say, chance to speak with them. People from Russia speaking English. People from, well, of course, Latin American, here Latin American people at the same time, and well, people as well from Germany. That's actually they have a really hard accent from Italy at the same time, and from Africa. That's another one that is interesting. From South Africa, from Somalia, from Egypt, from Indonesia as well, from Tunisia, from Mauritius, like a small island in Madagascar, like close to Africa. Yeah, Japanese in English as well. So it's actually a long journey, but when you speak with them, you realize that it's important just to keep working, to keep working because, well, it's like, as I said before, it's like a mirror. Of course, there is no way to say that I'm perfect, but it's a way to say, like, oh, you still need to work because maybe in the same way, the native people may see you, right? So that's why it's important just to keep working and yeah, definitely. At the same time, that's another aspect because now that I remember, in back in university a couple of years ago, we had a lecture. It was a virtual lecture, and someone here from Colombia. The topic was about I mean, language is not about accent. That's another aspect, that I need to clarify because I'm not judging them. I'm not judging the Indian, and I love them. But what I mean is that usually, like the native English, like the native speakers, like American people, unfortunately, they believe, they swear that their accent is the only one. I mean, that's the only English. If they hear me, for example, speaking, or maybe an Indian, sorry, but you're not speaking English. I don't even talk what language you're talking about. And that's another thing. But because when in Spanish, even in our native language, here in Colombia we have costeños, paisas, we have los boyacos, they speak the same language but in a different way, right? And that's an accent. So that's another thing that is important to clarify, that language is not about accent. So language is language, no matter regardless the accent you have.
Well, language is not about accent. So have have those yes, have those intercultural conversations or opportunities enrich your English learning?
Definitely, definitely, because I have the chance, I have the chance to. I mean, when I'm working, of course, apart from that, I have the chance to understand what's happening, in that process. What do I mean? Since I'm into, let's say, some different aspects, like involved in how we communicate, how the language, English works, I have the chance to understand, to grasp, I would say, so, to grasp what's happening in their minds, what's happening when they try to convey. So definitely in that process, since I'm not a native English speaker, it's even easier for me to get what they're saying, that just if a native English speaker will be listening to them. So just imagine, that I have a native speaker and I'm right here, and then we're listening to an Indian guy. It's very likely, the likelihood is really high that the native English speakers are like, come on, I don't even get what you're saying. You know,
Okay, get you. So for you, what are the positive things about culture?
Wow. Culture when it comes to English, learning English, or
When about having in mind those experiences you had,
okay,
what are those positive things that you can say? Well, this that thing had helped me a lot.
okay, gotcha. Well, definitely, the first thing is, as I mentioned before, maybe the phonetics, because the more languages, the more accents you hear, the more chances you will have to try to, yeah, to get to understand that the English is it's a broader, it's broader than you thought, than you think that it is, once again about accent. So that's one aspect. And at the same time, well, when you're, because yeah, those small conversation that I had with those native, or let's say native, yeah, English, not English speaker, but well, for with those speakers with different countries, I had the chance to have some small conversations, about their country itself. So that's why you try to get to know the culture, because as I propose, like I pointed out before, language is immersed in culture. So that's the thing. When you start to learn a language, of course it's because you like it, of course, but it's important to know that when you're learning the language, you're getting, the culture. You're getting to know the culture. So sooner or later, you're gonna be part of the culture. For example, I mean, this is just an example. I learn English and now I'm into NBA. I have the Lakers, but of course they don't even play here in Colombia. I have like NBA. Maybe I dress
Yeah.
myself like an American people. Some people have said, "Are you from America?" But maybe it's because of that. We try to learn that, and then you think that you're part of that. So that's another thing that I love. When having those conversations with people or across the globe. Yeah.
Okay, so basically, when you are trying to acquire a language, you are like in getting involved into the culture in an unconscious way, right?
There you go. That's the word. Yeah, you're definitely right.
Okay, so having in mind that you had like the opportunity to get involved into, have you ever done something disrespectful without being aware about it? Culturally talking, for example, you have one idea into in your mind, but when you are communicating that idea, is like the other person is
Yep, it
understanding
happened
a
to me
different thing.
quite a long times, and it's because, as we know, the topic is called the false cognate and the true cognate. That we think that a word is the same in Spanish and English. Like principle, for example. I would say like, yeah, that's the principal reason why I didn't do it. And they were like, principal. What do you mean? Like the director of the school? Like, what's that? And then I was like, what do you mean? I don't get it. So we're like, we got our fingers crossed. Then she said, no, it's actually you mean main. That's the main. Oh, I said, like, oh my god, you're right. So that's why it was a shocking experience because I was like, I was feeling then nervous, not that comfortable to speak. So that's one aspect, and maybe trying to use some expressions, that we use here in Spanish. At the same time, because we try to impact them, but unfortunately, I tended to translate them, first literally, in the literal way, and then try to, spit them out. And I ended up, expressing a different thing, totally different than the one that I really wanted to. Because that happens, we have a bunch of expressions that they're not the same. For example, I attempted to say like not only that shines is gold. That's what I said, and they were like, "Well, I get your point, but I don't even understand." But the phrase that they had was like, all that glitters is not gold. Then I was like, oh, okay. So now they really understand what I was saying. Of course, the idea makes sense. Like shines, but maybe the sun shines. So it was really awkward, actually. Not that
Or
cool.
yeah, or for example, when you said like dog that barks doesn't bite,
Um,
it's like you
yeah,
are
there you go.
translating into Spanish. Yes, something that I think that might like produce like a misunderstanding because we are like changing the language but not trying to like applying it into the same language. Like
That's why. Oh, go ahead, go
for
ahead.
the same expression, look for the same expression in English. I mean,
So that's why for those who are still, in this learning journey, beautiful learning journey of English or any other language, at the beginning, it's a fight. It's really hard to avoid it, because at the beginning, when we're at A1 or maybe pre A1, A2, well, because of the A2 and A1 and A2 language, it's necessary to translate. But try to avoid translate, try to start, you know, let's say learning the English, try to start thinking in the same English way. That way you can start, of course, getting or acquiring the vocabulary you meant to get to.
okay, well, Smith, having in mind like the conversation we had, like, do you think that it would be a good idea to learn English having in mind cultural aspects?
Well, I think that we already aborted, the question because, as I mentioned before, language is part of the culture. So that's why by learning English, you're learning the culture. So definitely the curriculum, to some extent needs to be shaped, needs to be amended, like adjusted. Maybe I've read the current one, the ministry, education ministry here, has got in Colombia. It's suitable because they go with different aspects. So that's why it maybe should be mandatory, just to go with cultural aspects, just to understand what they do, not only for a living, I mean, what they do on a daily basis. And because, for example, here in Colombia, if we talk about hiking, skiing,
Yeah.
for example, just the weather, we don't even have, well, we do. If we talk about any neighbors, different. Well, there is snow, but it's not that common. We don't have the shape of the change of winter, between November up until March. And then spring, and then when the spring comes, it's really like a fun, we have the chance to travel. But when it comes to winter, it's just like, you know, just maybe a mess. So that's why those things is important just to bring them up. I mean, just to bring them up in a class. Because once again, it's important, just to get familiar, to get to know the English and so on, the culture itself. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much, Smith. Which pieces of advice would you give for those ones or for our listeners that they are like having an English learning process? So, which advice would you give to them?
All
Too
right. First
close.
of all, don't give up. Don't give up. Usually we say like, no, it's really hard. I just joined like an English conversational club and I didn't understand anything at all. But first of all, don't give up. Try to start by joining. If you are into, let's say, speaking, if that's your focus, try to start by joining A1, A2. Try to find your levels, so you can start to express what you have. Why? Because maybe for those who are a bit smart, they will love to go with some books. Try to find one author, American author that is called Stephen Krashen. The guy rocks. It's of course linguistic. Linguistic is actually a professor, and she one of the universities in Chicago in America and United States. He proposes something that when we're learning English, it's important to go with those, let's say, vocabulary, those books that we understand. Because if we're just A2, there is no way that you're gonna get that you're gonna start understand like an essay, because you're gonna have such a hard words, and that's when you're gonna find it hard to learn English. That's when you're gonna say, you know what, English is really tough. That's not my thing. That's not for me. That's not my Achilles heel. So that's why it's simple. Just go, let's say one step at a time. That's one phrase that I can say. One step at a time, one day at a time. Try to do just to do. I mean, an extra mile. So if you learn one word today, try to go with two tomorrow. And sooner or later you're gonna get. You're gonna see the results. That's one advice. Don't give up. At the same time, just discover what's the suitable way in which you can acquire the language. And that's another thing that I need to clarify. So learning is just learn a vocabulary. For example, let's put it really simple. Computer, well, computador, computer. That's to learn. To learn, oh, I just learned that computador says in English, computer. Now, just to acquire, just to try to put it into context, with no need to translate. ¿Cómo se dice computador? Computer. You're still learning, but when you acquire the language, it comes up with no need of thinking, computer. So that's why try to go from the step of learning into acquiring an English learning. That's another important aspect for those who are still learning English. And well, practice is the key. Practice makes perfect. That's the quote. Yeah, we need to say.
Okay, so thank you so much, Smith, for being with us today. It has been a pleasure to have you here. I know that many different things that you had mentioned here are going to be really enriching for our listeners. So, guys, this has been Ruben Gomez and Smith, and we were talking about a little bit about culture. So, guys, if you have any question, any recommendation, any suggestion, remember that you can send us a message to our email that is majorlinguastrp@gmail.com. So, Smith, once again, thanks for being here.
Well,
Do you have
what
anything else
comments?
to say,
Well, what
or
comments I
that's
can
all?
say? What comments I can say? Human. Let's use Spanish for a sec because that's an example, a really good example. We were talking about the expressions, but this is gonna be from Spanish. El ser humano no vive sino convive, right? So let's put it in this way. So that's why by having this chance, it's really good opportunity, just to interact, just to feel as human, actually, because that's what we are, human. And well, I mean, talk from the experience is really grateful because I learned from a bunch of people. So maybe that's one of the best ways to contribute to say thank you, doing the same way. Because I used to be a student, now I'm a teacher, so I need to try to give away. It's actually give away for free, just to give away what we know, so what the world, what the life has taught us, so has teaching well taught us, yeah. So that's why thank you so much for the time for you guys who are watching us and Ruben, thank you so much as usual. You're the best, and well, I hope that bunch of people, let's say, get get this, find this video, this radio interesting, and try to understand and learn a bunch of things. So thank you so much. Thanks a million.
You too. So thank you so much, Smith. I would like to have you here again. So we will be
Yeah,
talking about it.
anytime.
So thank you so much and see you soon.
Stay tuned.
Bye
Stay
guys.
tuned. Bye bye. Thank you.